The Surface Pro 7 is the least exciting device in Microsoft's lineup this year. The Surface laptop now comes in a 15-inch model, and the Surface Pro X, an entirely new product line, launched with an exciting new edge-to-edge design powered by Microsoft's new ARM-based SQ1 CPU. After the announcement, when people started getting their devices in hand, the excitement began to wear off. The AMD CPU in the 15-inch Surface laptop wasn't the knockout everyone hoped it would be, and Windows 10 on ARM on the Surface Pro X isn't mature enough for that device to be worthy of the Pro name. Now, the Surface Pro 7 doesn't seem like such the disappointment everyone initially labeled it. A tried-and-true design, a robust software ecosystem, and an updated CPU from a mature silicon lineage make the Surface Pro 7 one of the best 2-in-1 PCs you can buy. Hey there everybody, it's me Cody from OnMicrosoft.com, and today I'm going to be reviewing my thoughts and experience with the Surface Pro 7 in the last month or so that I've had it. Surface Pro 7 is first and foremost a tablet. The tablet is 11.5 inches wide and 9 inches tall, making it about the size of a composition notebook. At about 1.7 pounds and 8.5 millimeters thick, it's neither too heavy or too thick. Some people find it a little too big for comfort, however, I have somewhat larger hands and have no problem holding it like a clipboard. Also, the Surface Pro 7 has a kickstand, which enables it to stand up all on its own, something most tablets still can't do without an accessory. It becomes very easy to interact with the tablet when it's set down on a table at a low angle. I'm able to type surprisingly well on the touch keyboard with the device in this position. Despite the charming hardware, Windows is still a real nuisance when using the Surface Pro 7 as a tablet. Windows 10 is incredibly finicky and inconsistent with how it responds to input, stuttering, delayed or unresponsive clicks, and choppy animations are still present in all Windows 10 machines. These problems are exacerbated when using a finger as your primary input device. I firmly believe Microsoft needs to improve the reactiveness and reliability of Windows 10's user interface. Nonetheless, I do use my Surface Pro 7 as a tablet about 60% of the time, and have no problems getting things done. Access to the entire world of desktop-class hardware and software experiences on a tablet is incredible. Competing hybrid devices like the iPad Pro are still far away from being able to offer all the functionality of a real PC. Until then, the Surface Pro will remain the gold standard of this category. Indeed, the novelty of the Surface Pro would not be complete without the addition of the type cover. This accessory is what truly transforms the Surface Pro 7 into a 2-in-1. This year's type covers aren't any different than last year's, so you can use whatever version has a color that best fits your taste. As for the actual typing experience, it's just as good as previous generations of Surface Pro. The type cover features a full-sized backlit chiclet keyboard with 1.3 millimeters of travel. Like previous models, the type cover folds up into a very comfortable typing angle. The keys are relatively quiet and provide satisfying tactile feedback. It's impressive how good a keyboard Microsoft managed to fit into such a flat cover. Similarly, the precision glass trackpad feels very nice. It's among the best on any Windows laptop. Input is instantaneous, and gesture support feels natural. At the end of the day, the type cover is still a cover. It serves the purpose of protecting the screen when closed, and when you don't want it, you can flip it around or under the tablet. The type cover recognizes when it's flipped around, shutting off to prevent unintentional input when it's being held from behind or pressed against a table. To be honest though, I find it easier to just remove the keyboard entirely when I want to use it as a tablet. The type cover transitions the Surface Pro in and out of being a tablet much more effortlessly than other 2-in-1s with detached mechanisms or 360 hinges. Because I use my Surface Pro as a tablet so much, this is a huge plus for me. Equally identical to previous generations, the Surface Pro 7 and type cover are surprisingly stable on the lap. The kickstand prevents the Surface Pro from wobbling side to side and can be opened to a very wide angle on the lap. Unfortunately, though, the kickstand can also be restricting. You can't push the device off the edge of your knees or else it'll fall over. As a consequence, you have to use the Surface Pro much closer to your torso when typing on your lap, which is noticeably less comfortable than in a traditional laptop. Whatever angle you set your screen to, you'll be more than pleased with the excellent quality of the 12.3-inch PixelSense display found on the Surface Pro 7. Sure, it's not edge-to-edge like on the new Surface Pro X, but I think it's more than enough for most people. The colors are excellent, blacks are deep, and the screen can get reasonably bright. The Surface Pro 7 ships with 2 custom display color profiles out of the box. sRGB, and Enhanced. A toggle in Action Center switches between these two color profiles and gives you a little bit more control over the appearance of the display. I think that anyone using their Surface Pro for visual art should stick to the sRGB profile for a more accurate representation of their work. When choosing a pen for Surface Pro 7, you should try to pick up a model designed for the Surface Pro 7. Initially, I tried drawing on my Pro 7 with one of the older clip models of the Surface Pen and wondered why it felt so disjointed. After picking up one of the newest models with tilt support, all of these problems went away. Inking appears to be the priority behind the design of the Surface Pen. I love note-taking on the Surface Pro. As I mentioned before, the Surface Pro 7 is about the size of a composition notebook, making it the perfect size for writing. Because of the kickstand, you can even write directly onto the screen in the upright position, and the screen will stay put. One of the best apps for inking is OneNote, whose pencil tool lets you access the full breadth of input capabilities of the Surface Pen. The pen can detect up to 4,096 points of pressure, recognizes tilt, angle, and even has a functional eraser at the top. The button on the side of the pen acts as a right-click button, so you can use the pen in place of a mouse when using more compact desktop apps for more precise input. In addition to inking, there's nothing that stops you from using the pen for digital art. The precise capabilities of the pen paired with the desktop-class software options make the Surface Pro a compelling choice for digital artists. It's not as well suited as some more dedicated devices from the likes of Wacom or Apple, but it'll certainly get the job done. I draw digitally for fun, and I find the Surface Pro more convenient for this than having an external or secondary tablet. Because it's built right into my primary PC, it's almost always with me. With apps like Concepts, I can very quickly unlock my device, create a new file, and start hammering out quick sketches. Apps like these are what make drawing on the Surface Pro enjoyable. Once I've finished sketching in one app, it's easy to transfer that file to other more powerful apps like Autodesk Sketchbook or Adobe Photoshop. The file management of Windows on the Surface Pro is superior to that of iPadOS on devices like the iPad Pro. It's just a lot easier to take a complicated project from start to finish on Windows. On the downside, like with a lot of things, Windows can sometimes test your patience when drawing on this device. Things can get glitchy, and it's just not as well optimized for tasks like these. A lot of drawing apps tend to make my Surface Pro 7 quite warm when drawing. It isn't uncomfortable, but it does reduce battery life significantly. Perhaps the biggest issue with the Surface Pro 7 is battery life. Microsoft advertises 10.5 hours of battery life on the Surface Pro 7, which is worryingly less than the 13.5 advertised for last year's model. I'm only able to get around 5 or 6 hours of regular use on my Surface Pro 7, a window that narrows dramatically when using any high-performance app. The Surface Pro 7 is like the city car of computers when it comes to battery life. It doesn't have very good range, but if you spend most of your time at home, at school, or in the office, it isn't really that big of a problem. The Surface Pro 7 can charge especially quickly with its new fast charging capabilities. With the included charger, the Surface Pro 7's battery can charge up to 80% in an hour. Another really good update with this year's Surface lineup is with Instant On. Basically, with technology from Intel's new 10th generation Intel processors, the Surface Pro 7 won't hibernate, closing it for several hours like previous models. I can close the cover on my Surface Pro 7 overnight, open it the next day, and it'll turn on as if it never went to sleep. Contrary to what you might expect, this feature doesn't drain the battery at all. In contrast, one thing that will drain the Surface Pro 7's battery is gaming. Just for fun, I cranked up my Surface Pro 7 to maximum performance at 100% brightness and played around in Minecraft Java Edition just to see how quickly I could drain the battery. After 1 hour and 44 minutes of full load, I took the battery from 100 to 0%. To be fair though, I think just about the same can be done on any laptop if you really tried. In my opinion, a PC cannot be considered competent for gaming unless it has a dedicated graphics card of some kind. Microsoft does offer a laptop with dedicated graphics in the Surface Book 2, however, the industry as a whole has yet to figure out how to shrink this kind of hardware into a more compact package. Nonetheless, the i7 Surface Pro 7 is the most capable Surface Pro there ever has been for light gaming. The improved performance is thanks to the Intel Iris Plus graphics integrated into Intel's 10th generation i7-1065G7 CPU. The Iris Plus graphics are in both the i7 and i5 CPU models of the Surface Pro 7, however they're clocked slightly higher on the i7 model. The inclusion of a fan also keeps the i7 model running at higher clock speeds for longer. For the best performance, I connect the charger and set the performance mode in the taskbar battery flyout to best performance. Without a doubt, the Surface Pro 7 delivers exceptional performance in most advanced applications. Advanced apps like PowerPoint and Photoshop run incredibly well. I actually edited the Surface Pro 7 unboxing review and Windows 10 November update videos on my Surface Pro 7. All around, the Surface Pro 7 has a great selection of ports and connectors. Just like last year, the Surface Pro 7 has a micro SD card slot and a full-sized USB-A 3.1 port. With these connectors, I'm able to use all of my existing USB-A and micro SD devices without having to carry around adapters. Again, sometimes it's just easier to plug and play than deal with pairing and unpairing wireless accessories. In addition to this, the Surface Pro 7 is the first in its lineup to feature a USB-C port. Though it's not Thunderbolt 3 compatible, it's a lot more useful than the mini DisplayPort that was in its place previously. With this new connector, the Surface Pro 7 is now compatible with most Type-C devices in the convoluted USB-C ecosystem. This includes things like USB-C docks and chargers that comply with the appropriate USB power delivery protocols. Likewise, the Surface Connect port can still be used with the Surface Dock, another powerful yet aging device that expands the connectivity of the Surface Pro. No, you can't get Thunderbolt 3 out of the Surface Dock either, but you can use it for Ethernet, external 4K displays, or whatever other USB-A devices you might have docked at your desk. One thing that truly shocked me was the new microphone array on the Surface Pro 7. Though these new studio mics won't be replacing my blue USB microphone anytime soon, they're by far the best microphones on any Surface Pro to date. You see, the Surface Pro has this unfortunate situation where the microphones have to be on the tablet right up next to the fan. On previous Surfaces, the fan noise would be incredibly obnoxious to anyone listening to sound recorded by the built-in microphone. In contrast, the Surface Pro 7's microphone array does an incredibly good job at actively cancelling out unwanted noise. Now I can join video calls without having to worry about bothering people on the other end with background noise. Of all the Surface Pro 7's design update emissions, serviceability is the most disappointing. The SSD on the Surface Pro 7 is soldered onto the motherboard inside of a tablet that is sealed shut. With this, when the SSD dies, the whole tablet goes with it. Seeing that so many companies now are producing laptops which aren't serviceable, it's annoying that Microsoft, now one of the players reversing this trend, would omit this from one of their top products. I don't think the prospect of a Surface Pro 8 with the design of the Surface Pro X is enough to dismiss the Pro 7 as an option for most people. Sure, it would be nice, but we can't actually be sure that Microsoft is going to do this next year. There's always going to be a next year product, so it doesn't make sense to continue waiting perpetually. If you've never owned a Surface before or are upgrading from a previous generation, you'll be more than satisfied with what the Surface Pro 7 has to offer today. In the end, the Surface Pro 7 is a very mature machine which is competent for most of your computing needs. If you're attracted to the novelty of a tablet that can replace your laptop, but need a real PC that's capable of running all of your favorite software, then the Surface Pro 7 is an excellent choice. This has been me, Cody, from OnMicrosoft.com. If this video was helpful, make sure to like it, subscribe, and check out our website at OnMicrosoft.com for more info. Thank you, goodbye.